In the cradle of the Aegean, where the whispers of gods still echo across marble ruins, lies a land where myth and history intertwine. Greece, the land of philosophers and warriors, of gods and mortals, where democracy was born and empires fell. For over 3,000 years, this rugged peninsula has witnessed triumph and tragedy, innovation and collapse. From the golden age of Athens, where minds like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle reshaped human thought, to the Spartan warriors whose discipline became legend, to the rise and fall of Alexander the Great, whose empire stretched from Greece to India. Yet Greece is more than ruins and legends. It is a story of identity, of resilience, of a people who, despite centuries of conquest, never forgot who they were. Today, we journey deep into the heart of this ancient land to explore its history, its culture, its economy, and its present. Challenges this is the story of Greece. This is Historic Horizon TV History. The dawn of civilization long before the world knew the names of Athens and Sparta. The islands of the Aegean and the rugged mainland of Greece were home to some of the earliest and most fascinating civilizations in human history. The story begins with the Minoans, who flourished on the island of Crete around 3000 BCE with their advanced trade networks, complex palaces like Naissus, and mysterious art depicting bull-leaping rituals. They became one of the first great maritime cultures. But their sudden decline possibly caused by the catastrophic eruption of Thera around 1600 BCE gave rise to the Mycenaeans, a warrior society whose fortified citadels inspired the legends of Troy and Agamemnon. These were the people who carved their names into the earliest pages of Greek mythology, laying the foundations for the tales of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. The world of gods and heroes was born here, in an age where history and legend became inseparable. The birth of the polis by the 8th century BCE. The chaotic aftermath of the Bronze Age collapse gave way to something extraordinary. The birth of the polis, the city-state. Unlike the sprawling empires of Egypt or Mesopotamia, Greece was a mosaic of fiercely independent communities. Among them, two rose to dominate the imagination of history: Athens and Sparta. Athens, perched on the rocky Attica Peninsula, became the cradle of democracy, a radical idea where citizens, not kings, debated and decided the fate of their city. Meanwhile, Sparta, nestled in the fertile lands of Laconia, built a society entirely focused on discipline, obedience, and military strength. This duality, Athens, the philosopher, Sparta, the warrior, would define Greek identity for centuries, shaping everything from politics to art to war. The Persian Wars. In the early 5th century BCE, Greece faced its first existential threat: the mighty Persian Empire. Under Darius and later Xerxes, the Persians sought to subjugate the Greek world, but against all odds, the city-states united. At Marathon, Athenian hoplites charged across the plain, defeating a vastly superior Persian force, Thermopylae. King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans made their legendary stand, buying precious time for the Greek alliance. And finally, at Salamis, the Athenian navy delivered a crushing blow that turned the tide of history. These victories were more than military triumphs. They became the very soul of Greek identity, cementing their belief in freedom, resilience, and destiny. The Golden Age of Athens. With the Persian threat defeated, Athens entered a period of unprecedented cultural and intellectual flowering. Under the leadership of Pericles, the city transformed into a beacon of human achievement. The Parthenon rose atop the Acropolis, a temple not just to Athena, but to the ideals of beauty, balance, and harmony. Playwrights like Sophocles and Euripides explored the deepest questions of morality and fate, while philosophers like Socrates challenged society to examine the meaning of justice and truth. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, all advanced rapidly during this era. It was here that the very foundations of Western thought were laid, in a city where the human mind reached for the divine. The rise of Macedon. But Athens' glory would not last forever. Internal strife and rivalry with Sparta plunged Greece into the devastating Peloponnesian War, a 27-year conflict that left the city-states weakened and divided. Into this fractured landscape rose an unexpected power, Macedon, under the brilliant leadership of Philip II and his son, Alexander the Great. In just a decade, Alexander would conquer the Persian Empire, founding cities from Egypt to India and spreading Greek language, art, and philosophy across 3 continents. The Hellenistic world was born, a fusion of Greek and Eastern cultures that would shape civilizations for centuries to come. Yet, even as Alexander's empire fractured, after his death, his vision of a connected world ensured that Greek influence would never fade. Greece under Rome. By the 2nd century BCE, the fractured Greek world stood vulnerable, its once mighty city-states exhausted by centuries of war. Into this vacuum marched the Roman Republic, a rising power from the West whose legions were unmatched in discipline and might. The decisive blow came at the Battle of Corinth in 146 BCE, when the Romans crushed the Achaean League and reduced Corinth, one of Greece's richest cities, to ashes. Greece was no longer free. Yet, unlike other conquered lands, Greece exerted a strange and profound influence over its conquerors. Roman generals admired Greek philosophy. Roman poets drew from Greek myths. Roman architects borrowed Greek columns, symmetry, and ideals of beauty. The historian Horace would later write, "Greece, though captured, took her savage conqueror captive." While Roman rule brought roads, aqueducts, and relative stability, it also marked the end of Greek political autonomy. Athens and Sparta remained names of glory, but now they existed under the shadow of a greater empire, the rise of Christianity. As the Roman Empire expanded, a quiet revolution was stirring across the eastern Mediterranean, one that would change Greece forever. In the 1st century CE, the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth began to spread, carried by apostles like Paul, who preached in Greek cities such as Corinth, Philippi, and Thessaloniki. The language of Homer and Plato became the language of the early Christian Gospels, embedding Greece deeply into the birth of a new faith. When Emperor Constantine embraced Christianity in the 4th century CE, the empire itself transformed, splitting into 2 halves, the Western Roman Empire, centered in Rome, and the Eastern Roman Empire, with its capital at Constantinople, the modern-day Istanbul. For Greece, this shift meant more than a change in rulers. It marked a spiritual rebirth. As temples of the old gods were abandoned and grand Byzantine churches, adorned with golden mosaics, rose in their place, the Parthenon itself became a Christian cathedral, symbolizing a profound transformation in Greek identity. The Byzantine Golden Age. Under the Byzantine Empire, Greece found itself at the crossroads of cultures, religions, and trade. Constantinople became one of the wealthiest cities on earth, a glittering jewel where East met West. Greek became the empire's official language, ensuring that the legacy of classical philosophy, science, and literature would survive even as the Western Roman Empire crumbled. The Byzantine Greeks preserved the works of Homer, Aristotle, and Hippocrates, guarding the treasures of antiquity through centuries of turmoil. Monks painstakingly copied ancient manuscripts by hand, ensuring they would not be lost to time. In art and architecture, Byzantium flourished, blending Roman engineering with Eastern mysticism. The Hagia Sophia, with its vast golden dome, stood as a symbol of divine authority, inspiring awe in all who entered. Greece thrived within this empire, yet beneath the surface tensions brewed, for the Byzantines were constantly besieged by enemies from all sides: Persians, Arabs, Bulgarians, and later, Crusaders. The Fourth Crusade and fall. In 1204, disaster struck. What began as a holy mission to reclaim Jerusalem turned into one of the darkest chapters of Greek history. The Fourth Crusade, manipulated by Venetian merchants, descended upon Constantinople, looting its treasures and shattering the Byzantine Empire. For over half a century, Greece fell under the control of Latin rulers, while the once mighty Byzantines retreated to fragmentary states. Although the empire would eventually recover Constantinople in 1261, it was a shadow of its former glory. Economically drained and politically fractured, Byzantium struggled to withstand the relentless advance of a new power rising from the east, the Ottoman Turks, Greece. Once the cradle of Western civilization, now stood on the brink of a new age of conquest, its ancient monuments scarred, its cities weakened, and its people caught between fading empires. The fall of Constantinople. On May 29, 1453, the world changed forever. After a brutal 53-day siege, the armies of Sultan Mehmed II breached the walls of Constantinople. The Byzantine Empire, which had endured for over 1,000 years, ceased to exist. As the city fell, its streets ran red with blood, and its churches echoed with the last desperate prayers of the defenders. For the Greeks, it was more than a military defeat. It was the loss of their cultural heart. Yet, even under the Ottomans, the Greek spirit endured. In remote mountain villages and hidden monasteries, traditions, language, and faith were preserved, like embers waiting to ignite again. The fall of Constantinople marked the end of one chapter, but it set the stage for another, a long, painful struggle for survival under foreign rule, and the dream of freedom that would burn for nearly 4 centuries. Under the crescent moon, when Constantinople fell in 1453, the Byzantine Empire collapsed, and Greece, once the proud cradle of Western civilization, was absorbed into the vast and rising Ottoman Empire. For nearly 4 centuries, the Greek people lived under Ottoman domination. It was a time of oppression, but also one of quiet endurance. The Ottomans imposed heavy taxes, restricted Christian worship, and suppressed local governance. Yet they allowed a degree of autonomy under the millet system, where religious communities managed their own affairs. Despite this, Greek culture faced immense pressure. The ancient temples of Athens lay in ruins, monasteries were looted, and the Parthenon itself was converted into a mosque. But beneath the surface, something unbreakable remained: the Greek spirit. In mountain villages and remote monasteries, scholars secretly taught children the Greek language and classical heritage. Oral traditions, folk songs, and orthodox rituals became the lifeline of a people determined to remember who they were. Preservation of faith and identity. The Greek Orthodox Church became the anchor of national identity during these centuries of darkness. While the Ottomans ruled with power, they could not extinguish faith. Churches, though diminished in grandeur, remained sanctuaries where traditions survived. The chanting of ancient hymns, the celebration of Easter, and the veneration of saints became acts of quiet defiance. Meanwhile, Greek intellectuals, fleeing Ottoman territories, carried their knowledge to the West, fueling the European Renaissance. In Venice, Vienna, and Paris, exiled Greeks preserved manuscripts, translated Aristotle, and taught the philosophies of Plato, ensuring that the wisdom of their ancestors was never lost. Within Greece itself, Clef's mountain rebels waged guerrilla warfare against Ottoman rule, becoming folk heroes immortalized in songs and poetry. For generations, hope was kept alive by whispers. One day, the Greeks would rise again. The spark of revolution. By the early 19th century, the winds of change swept across Europe. The Age of Enlightenment had awakened new ideas about liberty, nationalism, and self-determination. Inspired by the American and French revolutions, Greek patriots began to organize in secret. The Philosophers, a clandestine society formed in Odessa, became the heart of the independence movement. plotting an uprising against Ottoman authority. In 1821, the call to arms finally came. Across the Peloponnese, central Greece, and the islands, Greeks rose in revolt. The war was brutal and merciless. Entire villages were burned, and massacres claimed thousands of lives, most infamously at Chios in 1822, where tens of thousands of Greeks were slaughtered or enslaved. Yet, even in tragedy, the revolution gathered momentum. Byron, the English poet, sailed to Greece to fight and ultimately die for its freedom, turning the struggle into a European cause, célèbre. For the first time in centuries, the dream of independence seemed within reach. The birth of a nation. After nearly a decade of war, sacrifice, and foreign intervention, Greece finally achieved what once seemed impossible. In 1829, the Treaty of Adrianople recognized Greek autonomy, and by 1832, the Kingdom of Greece was officially established under King Otto of Bavaria. But freedom came at a cost. The new kingdom was small, encompassing only the Peloponnese, central Greece, and a few islands. Millions of Greeks remained under Ottoman rule in Macedonia, Thrace, Epirus, and Asia Minor. Still, the rebirth of Greece was a triumph of perseverance. Athens, a humble village of barely 4,000 people at the time, was chosen as the capital, and the ruins of the Acropolis became a symbol of national pride. Across Europe, Greece was celebrated as a land where the descendants of Plato and Leonidas had reclaimed their destiny. Yet the young nation faced immense challenges: poverty, political instability, and the lingering scars of war towards modern Greece. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, Greece continued its struggle to unite all Greek-speaking lands. The Megali idea, the great idea, became the guiding vision of expanding the kingdom to encompass all historic Greek territories, including Constantinople itself. In successive conflicts, including the Balkan Wars 191 to 1913, Greece doubled its territory and population, incorporating Macedonia, Epirus, and the Aegean Islands. Yet tragedy struck again in 1922, during the Greco-Turkish War, when the catastrophic burning of Smyrna led to a massive population exchange between Greece and Turkey. Entire communities were uprooted, ancient cities were lost, and more than 1.5 million Greeks became refugees in their ancestral homeland. The scars of this period still echo in Greek memory today. By the mid-20th century, Greece had endured Nazi occupation, a bloody civil war, and political turmoil, yet through it all, one truth remained: the Greek people, heirs to one of humanity's greatest legacies, refused to be broken. Culture. The language of the gods. The story of Greece cannot be told without its language, a living thread connecting the ancient world to the modern. Greek is one of the world's oldest recorded languages, with written texts dating back over 3,400 years. It was the language of Homer, whose epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, still thunder across time, telling tales of love, war, and the human spirit. It was the language in which Plato dreamed of ideal forms, Aristotle defined logic, and Herodotus chronicled the past. Greek words are woven into the fabric of our own modern languages: democracy, philosophy, theater, history, and cosmos. Today, modern Greek carries echoes of its ancient past, yet it is alive, evolving. Spoken passionately in bustling cafes, quiet villages, and on the steps of ancient ruins where history still breathes. To speak Greek is to hold a fragment of humanity's collective memory, a language born under the watchful eyes of the gods, yet carried forward by generations of resilient people, the cradle of philosophy. Greece gave the world more than empires and battles. It gave us the tools to think. From the sunlit shores of Ionia to the agora of Athens, Greek philosophers sought to understand existence itself. Socrates, condemned for questioning authority, taught us that the unexamined life is not worth living. Plato envisioned a realm of eternal truths beyond our mortal senses, while Aristotle, the student who surpassed his master, laid the foundations for science, politics, and ethics. Beyond Athens, Epicurus taught the pursuit of happiness through simplicity, while Zeno of Citium, founder of Stoicism, preached resilience in the face of fate. These ideas were not confined to dusty scrolls. They shaped civilizations, influenced empires, and continue to inspire modern thought. In Greece, philosophy was not an academic exercise. It was life itself, a search for meaning amid chaos, and a dialogue between humanity and the cosmos. Literature as immortality. In Greece, literature is a form of immortality. From Homer's epics to the lyrical verses of Sappho, Greek literature has always carried the heartbeat of its people. In the 5th century BCE, dramatists like Sophocles, Euripides, and Aeschylus transformed human suffering into poetry, staging tragedies that explored justice, vengeance, and destiny. The invention of theater itself is one of Greece's greatest gifts to humanity, born from religious festivals honoring Dionysus, the god of wine and ecstasy. Even today, at the ancient theater of Epidaurus, actors perform beneath the same open skies where audiences once sat millennia ago. Later, during the Byzantine period, Greek literature fused classical themes with Christian mysticism, producing hymns and texts that shaped Orthodox spirituality. In modern times, poets like Yorgos Sepphoris and Odysseus Elitis, both Nobel laureates, gave voice to Greece's struggles and dreams. Through its words, Greece speaks not just to itself, but to the world, offering eternal insights into love, tragedy, hope, and the human condition. Mythology, when gods walked among us. To understand Greek culture, one must step into the realm of myth, a world where gods and mortals share the same stage. Here, Zeus hurls thunderbolts from Olympus, Athena whispers wisdom to heroes, and Poseidon shakes the seas in anger. These myths were not mere stories. They were a lens through which the Greeks explained the mysteries of life, nature, and destiny. Every river had a spirit, every mountain a guardian, every storm a divine mood. The labors of Heracles, the voyage of Odysseus, the tragic love of Orpheus and Eurydice. These timeless tales transcended entertainment. They were philosophy wrapped in poetry, morality coded into legend. Even today, walking through the ruins of Delphi, one can almost hear the echo of the oracle's riddles, as if the gods still linger in the wind. Greek mythology is not dead. It is alive in our books, our art, our films, and our language, shaping our collective imagination across millennia. The modern Greek identity. Despite centuries of conquest and foreign rule, the Greek identity endured, rooted deeply in its language, faith, and literature. Modern Greek culture is a tapestry woven from ancient threads, the dialects of Homer, the philosophies of Plato, the hymns of Byzantium, and the folk songs born in mountain villages under Ottoman rule. Today, a Greek child reciting the poems of Cavafy carries the same flame once kindled in the schools of Athens. The language that described the birth of democracy now tells modern stories of love, migration, and resilience. This continuity is Greece's quiet miracle, a civilization that has reinvented itself time and again while staying profoundly connected to its roots. To be Greek is to live in dialogue with history, to carry both myth and mori within your voice. It is a reminder that cultures do not survive by chance, but through will, pride, and passion. Festivals where time stands still. In Greece, festivals are not just celebrations. They are bridges between centuries, where ancient traditions and modern life dance together beneath the same sun. From the islands of the Aegean to the mountain villages of Epirus, festivals bring communities alive in bursts of music, food, and faith. The Easter celebrations are perhaps the most important. In the Greek Orthodox calendar, During Holy Week, candles flicker in every village, and at midnight on Holy Saturday, the church bells erupt as cries of Christos Anesti. Christ is risen. Echo across the land. Fireworks explode over the whitewashed houses of Santorini, while families gather around tables laden with lamb roasted on a spit, red-dyed eggs, and sweet sareki bread. But Easter is only the beginning. From Carnival in Patras, one of Europe's largest, filled with parades and masquerades, to the Panayea festivals on remote islands like Tinos, Greece's celebrations embody a truth older than time. 4. The Greek's life is meant to be shared, sung, and savored, the music of the soul. If you want to understand Greece, listen to its music. From the haunting echoes of the Byzantine chants to the wild, free-spirited energy of island folk songs, Greek music carries the heartbeat of its people. The traditional bouzouki, with its metallic twang, tells stories of love, longing, and exile in melodies that drift like waves over the Aegean. In the urban cafes of Athens and Thessaloniki, during the early 20th century, a new genre was born: rebetiko, often called the Greek blues. Born among refugees and the working class, rebetiko speaks of hardship, resilience, and hope, carrying the soul of a displaced nation. Yet music in Greece is not confined to the past. It thrives in every tavern and public square today. Whether it's the hypnotic rhythms of Cretan lyra, the passionate Pontic dances of northern Greece, or the modern fusions of pop and folk, Greek music is a living archive of history. Each note, each chord, whispers the same timeless truth. Greece remembers. Dance the body remembers. For the Greeks, dance is identity. Across the rugged mountains, windswept islands, and bustling towns, each region has its own unique steps, rhythms, and meanings. The sirtaki, popularized by the film Zorba the Greek, has become a symbol of Greek joy worldwide, yet it is only one among hundreds of traditional dances. In Epirus, men form slow, solemn circles in the simiko, a dance born from warrior traditions. On the island of Crete, dancers leap into the air with the fast-paced pentazail, embodying defiance and pride. During weddings and festivals, entire villages link arms, forming great spirals that move as one, merging generations into a single living organism. To dance in Greece is to connect with ancestors, to embody their hopes, struggles, and triumphs. Watching these circles turn under starlit skies, you sense something eternal, as though through dance, Greece defies time itself. The art of eternity. Greece is a land where art breathes through stone, color, and light. From the flawless symmetry of the Parthenon sculptures to the glowing mosaics of Byzantine churches, Greek art reflects humanity's eternal search for beauty and meaning. In antiquity, artists sought to capture the ideal human form: serene, balanced, divine. Statues like the Discobolus and the Venus de Milo became icons of perfection, inspiring generations of artists worldwide. With the rise of Byzantium, art transformed, moving from realism to spiritual transcendence. Golden halos illuminated saints in vast mosaics, their solemn gazes inviting worshippers into a world beyond mortality. Even today, this dual legacy endures. Contemporary Greek painters like Yannis Morales and Alikos Fascianos blend modern techniques with ancient motifs, bridging past and present. Walking through the Acropolis Museum or the streets of Plaka, you realize that Greek art is not frozen in time. It evolves, carrying fragments of eternity into the now. Theater, the stage of humanity. The birthplace of theater, Greece gave the world its first stages, where human emotion was stripped bare beneath open skies. At the ancient theater of Epidaurus, designed over 2,300 years ago, the acoustics are so perfect that a whisper from the stage can be heard in the highest seats. Here, Athenians once watched the tragedies of Sophocles and Euripides, plays that confronted fate, morality, and the gods themselves. Comedy, too, flourished as playwrights like Aristophanes satirized politics and society, proving that laughter can be as powerful as sorrow. Today, Greek theater is far from a relic. It lives on, drawing global audiences to annual festivals where classic dramas are reimagined under the Mediterranean stars. To sit in these ancient amphitheaters is to experience something transcendent. Thousands of years dissolve, and for a moment, the concerns of gods and mortals, past and present, converge on a single stage. In Greece, theater is not entertainment. It is life-performed architecture, where time lives in stone. Greece is a land where architecture is memory carved into stone. From the whitewashed villages of the Cyclades to the grand ruins of Athens, every structure tells a story spanning millennia. At the heart of the capital, the Parthenon rises proudly on the Acropolis, its columns whispering tales of philosophers, warriors, and gods. Across the Aegean Islands, the iconic blue-domed churches of Santorini seem to blend seamlessly into the endless horizon, reflecting the serenity of the sea and sky. In the north, Thessaloniki wears its Byzantine soul proudly, with golden mosaics and ancient walls that still guard its past. In Meteora, monasteries perch on towering rock pillars as if suspended between earth and heaven, silent witnesses to centuries of faith and struggle. Yet Greek architecture is not just about the ancient and the sacred. It lives in the narrow alleyways of Plaka, the neoclassical mansions of Nafplio, and the bustling markets of Athens, where modern life intertwines effortlessly with history. To walk through Greece is to walk through time itself, where every corner carries a fragment of eternity. Cuisine, a symphony of the senses. In Greece, food is not just nourishment. It is poetry, memory, and celebration. Every dish tells a story. Every ingredient carries the scent of the Mediterranean sun. Picture a table overlooking the turquoise waters of the Aegean. Plates of grilled octopus drizzled with olive oil, moussaka layered with eggplant and spiced lamb, dolmades wrapped like tiny treasures, and tzatziki chilled to perfection. Greek cuisine is rooted in simplicity and purity. Olive oil, feta cheese, wild herbs, fresh seafood, and ripe tomatoes are not just ingredients. They are symbols of the land itself. Meals are never rushed. They are rituals, shared with family and friends, often stretching long into the night under strings of lanterns and the hum of cicadas. And then there is the wine retsina with its pine-scented notes, or the sweet, golden samos, each sip carrying the sun-soaked vineyards of centuries past. In Greece, to eat is to celebrate life, to honor the gods, the land, and one another. Coffee, taverns, and timeless conversations. Step into any Greek cafeteria, the traditional coffeehouse, and you'll discover a world where time slows down. Old men gather over tiny cups of strong Greek coffee, playing tavly backgammon and debating politics, philosophy, and football with the same passion once reserved for Socratic dialogues. In these humble cafes, stories are passed down like heirlooms, weaving the past into the present. By nightfall, the heartbeat of Greek social life shifts to the tavernas. Under the glow of soft lanterns, the air fills with the aroma of roasted meats and the melodies of the bouzouki. Plates clink, wine flows, and laughter rises above the music. Strangers become friends, and friends become family, united by the simple joy of sharing. This rhythm of life, where food, music, and conversation merge, has endured for centuries. In Greece, community is sacred, and every meal is a reminder that happiness is best when savored together. Traditions, threads of memory. Greece is a nation where traditions are sacred bridges between generations. Weddings, for example, are vibrant affairs filled with symbolism. The crowning of the bride and groom beneath golden wreaths, the swirling of guests in the kalamationos, dance, and the breaking of plates, an act of joy, defiance, and blessing, all at once. During name days, which often hold more importance than birthdays, families opened their homes to friends and neighbors, offering sweets and strong Greek hospitality. Even the smallest customs, like the offering of laukumi, Turkish delight, too. Visitors or the lighting of candles at a roadside chapel carry echoes of ancient beliefs. In the islands, Panegyria religious festivals honoring saints last 4 days, blending faith, music, and dance beneath starlit skies. These traditions are more than rituals. They are acts of resistance, a way for the Greek people to preserve their identity through centuries of foreign occupation, wars, and hardship. In every gesture, Greece remembers who it is, the spirit of philoxenia. Perhaps the most enduring aspect of Greek culture is philoxenia, literally, friend to strangers. In Greece, hospitality is not a courtesy. It is a sacred duty, rooted in ancient mythology, where Zeus himself was the protector of guests. Whether you are a neighbor or a traveler from across the world, you are welcomed with warmth, offered food, drink, and conversation. This open-hearted generosity defines the Greek way of life. A family with little to spare will still set their best dishes before you, refusing to let you leave without sharing in their abundance. Philoxenia transforms strangers into friends and turns fleeting encounters into lifelong memories. In an age of division, this ancient value feels revolutionary, a reminder that human connection transcends borders, language, and time. To experience philoxenia is to understand Greece's soul, resilient, proud, and endlessly giving. Economy, the cradle of commerce. Long before modern banks and global stock markets, Greece was the beating heart of Mediterranean trade. In the bustling streets of Athens, marble columns framed busy marketplaces known as agoras, where merchants bartered spices, olives, wine, and fine pottery. Across the Aegean, ships sailed like silver arrows, connecting islands and ports from Crete to Thessaloniki, from Delos to Rhodes. The Greeks became masters of maritime trade, turning their fragmented geography into an unmatched economic advantage. While other civilizations feared the open seas, the Greeks embraced them, transforming the Aegean into a highway of ideas and goods. Bronze, ivory, grains, and precious stones flowed through their ports, enriching not just their treasuries, but also their minds. Through this constant exchange, Greece became more than a marketplace. It became a crossroads of civilizations, blending Egyptian, Phoenician, and Persian influences into its thriving economy. In these early centuries, the Greek world discovered a truth that still defines it today. The sea was not a boundary. It was a bridge. Athens, Sparta, and economic contrasts. While Athens dazzled the ancient world with its philosophers and marketplaces, Sparta followed a different path. Unlike the cosmopolitan Athenians, Spartans built an economy centered on discipline, land, and conquest. Their wealth came not from bustling ports but from the fertile plains of Laconia and the labor of the Helots, enslaved population that sustained their militaristic society. This stark economic contrast between Athens and Sparta shaped Greek history, fueling rivalries and ultimately culminating in the Peloponnesian War, a conflict that drained resources and tested the limits of Greek unity. Yet, even in times of rivalry, trade continued to flourish. Athens exported fine ceramics, olive oil, and silver, while importing grains from the Black Sea and luxury goods from Asia Minor. These economic interdependencies reveal an essential truth. While political divisions tore Greece apart, commerce quietly held it together, weaving invisible threads between rival city-states. The age of empires and maritime supremacy. With the rise of Alexander the Great, Greek influence spread far beyond its rocky shores. From the Nile to the Indus, new trade routes blossomed, and Greek merchants gained access to silks from China, spices from India, and gold from Persia. Ports like Piraeus and Athens became bustling hubs, where Phoenician ships docked beside Egyptian barges and Roman galleys. Later, under Roman rule, Greece transformed into the intellectual and commercial jewel of the empire, supplying marble, wine, olive oil, and luxury goods across Europe. But perhaps no era symbolizes Greek maritime dominance more than the Byzantine period, with Constantinople, once Greek Byzantium, commanding the crossroads of East and West. Greece thrived as part of a trading superpower. Greek sailors became legends, carrying not only goods, but also ideas, art, and faith to distant lands. For centuries, the Aegean was alive with sails, a living testament to the Greek spirit of exploration and exchange. The Venetian and Ottoman shadows. From the 13th century onward, Greece's economic destiny fell under foreign powers. The Venetians seized key ports and islands, turning Greece into a crucial link in their Mediterranean trade empire. Greek merchants adapted, thriving within Venetian markets while preserving their local traditions. But when the Ottoman Empire swept across the region, the economy shifted dramatically. Heavy taxes were imposed, and agricultural production became the backbone of Greek livelihood. Yet even under Ottoman rule, Greek traders carved out influence, especially through the Phanariates of Constantinople, who became intermediaries between East and West. The sea, once the symbol of Greek freedom, became a contested arena of pirates, merchants, and imperial navies. Despite centuries of occupation, the Greek spirit of enterprise never died. Smuggling networks, hidden shipyards, and secret merchant alliances kept the economic lifeblood flowing, a quiet resistance that foreshadowed the fight for independence and the rebirth of a maritime nation. With the Greek War of Independence in the 1820s, a new economic chapter began. Despite being born from poverty and ruin, Greece leaned on its seafaring tradition to rebuild. The Greek merchant fleet, small but agile, re-emerged as a force in the Mediterranean, connecting the fledgling nation to markets across Europe. The economy relied heavily on agriculture, especially olives, grapes, and grains, while early industries developed around silk weaving, tobacco, and mining. Yet it was the sea, always the sea, that remained Greece's greatest asset. Generations of sailors carried not only cargo, but also stories, transforming Greek shipping into a symbol of national pride. This maritime resilience laid the foundation for what Greece would later become, one of the most dominant players in global shipping. In the rebirth of the Greek economy, the echoes of ancient trade and seafaring genius were unmistakable. History had set the course, and Greece was sailing toward its destiny once more. The land of eternal return, tourism's golden thread. Every year, millions of travelers descend upon Greece, drawn not just by its sun-kissed beaches and crystal blue seas, but by something deeper, something almost spiritual. From the whitewashed houses of Santorini, perched like ivory crowns above the Aegean, to the winding streets of Athens, where marble ruins whisper tales of forgotten empires, Greece has become one of the world's most desired destinations. Tourism contributes nearly 25% of the country's GDP, making it the lifeblood of the modern economy. Visitors come for the myth and magic, for sunsets over the caldera, for the sacred ground of Delphi, where the oracle once spoke to kings. Yet, behind the postcard-perfect images lies an untold story. The struggle to balance preservation with growth. The pressure on islands, fragile ecosystems, and ancient sites is immense. But Greece faces the challenge with quiet pride, investing in sustainable tourism and protecting its heritage. Every tourist walking the ruins of the Acropolis or gazing upon the Meteora monasteries becomes part of a narrative stretching back thousands of years. In Greece, tourism isn't just an industry, it's a cultural bridge, connecting the modern world with the ancient soul. Masters of the sea, Greece's shipping empire. If tourism is Greece's golden thread, then shipping is its iron backbone. With over 18% of the world's merchant fleet sailing under Greek ownership, Greece is nothing less than a global maritime superpower. This dominance isn't new. It's the modern continuation of a 2,500-year-old tradition. In the aftermath of World War II, a new generation of Greek shipowners, names like Onassis and Niorchos, rebuilt a devastated nation through steel, trade, and ambition. Today, the port of Piraeus, a gateway to Europe, stands as one of the busiest in the Mediterranean, connecting Asia to Europe via the Belt and Road Initiative. Yet behind the statistics lies something deeply human, the story of families who, for centuries, have treated the sea as their second home. For many Greek islanders, shipping isn't just a business, it's a birthright, passed from father to son, mother to daughter. From tankers carrying oil across the Atlantic to container ships linking global markets, Greek vessels move the lifeblood of world trade. And with every wave they cut through, they carry the spirit of Odysseus, always sailing forward, never turning back. Agriculture, the taste of Greece. Long before financial markets and industrial complexes, the Greek economy was rooted in the land, and in many ways, it still is. The country's rugged terrain and Mediterranean climate have given rise to some of the world's finest agricultural products. Olives from Kalamata, feta cheese from Crete, sun-ripened tomatoes, figs, and golden honey. These aren't just exports, they're symbols of Greece itself. Agriculture employs a significant portion of the population, particularly in rural areas where traditions are passed down through generations. Yet this sector faces new challenges. Climate change has disrupted rainfall patterns, while global competition pressures small-scale farmers. But Greeks, ever adaptive, are turning adversity into opportunity. Organic farming, eco-friendly vineyards, and PTO-protected products have carved out a niche in global markets. Today, Greek cuisine, simple, healthy, and deeply rooted in history, has become a brand in itself, attracting chefs, food lovers, and investors alike. Every drop of olive oil, every cluster of grapes tells a story of survival, resilience, and the deep connection between the Greek people and their land. The technological horizon. At first glance, Greece might seem defined by its ancient ruins. But look closer, and you'll find a country quietly reinventing itself. In recent years, Greece has emerged as a rising hub for startups and technology in the southeastern Mediterranean. Athens and Thessaloniki are witnessing a wave of innovation, from fintech solutions revolutionizing banking to renewable energy projects tapping into the country's abundant sun and wind. Investment in solar and wind farms has positioned Greece as a regional leader in green energy, aiming to reduce dependency on fossil fuels and embrace sustainability. Major tech giants like Microsoft and Amazon Web Services have begun investing in Greece, drawn by its strategic location and skilled workforce. For a nation often stereotyped as clinging to its past, these advances are a reminder: Greece isn't just a museum of history. It's a laboratory of possibility. Here, the ancient and the modern coexist as code meets marble and innovation rises among ruins, balancing heritage and progress. But with growth comes a delicate balancing act. Greece faces the unique challenge of modernizing its economy without losing its soul. Tourism brings wealth but threatens fragile environments. Shipping drives global influence but faces increasing scrutiny over carbon emissions and environmental impact. Farming sustains cultural identity, yet modernization pushes traditions to the brink. And as Greece invests in renewable energy and digital transformation, it must ensure that heritage and progress walk hand in hand. This tension between the eternal and the evolving defines Greece's economic narrative. It's a land where 5,000-year-old ruins cast shadows on solar panels, where fishermen now check market prices on smartphones, and where startup founders pitch ideas in cafes older than modern nations. Greece's economy is neither ancient nor futuristic. It is timeless, adapting and transforming while staying rooted in its spirit. And perhaps that's the secret. Greece knows that survival isn't about choosing between past and future. It's about weaving them together, the gathering storm. The year was 2009. For decades, Greece had stood proudly within the European Union, basking in the promises of prosperity, stability, and shared strength. But beneath the surface, an economic earthquake was brewing. Years of high public spending, inefficient tax collection, and deep structural weaknesses collided with the global 2008 financial meltdown, exposing a fragile reality. Suddenly, the numbers no longer added up. The Greek government revealed that its deficit was twice as large as previously reported, nearly 13% of GDP. Trust evaporated overnight. Creditors panicked. The country's bonds were downgraded to junk status, and Greece found itself locked out of global markets. Overnight, a nation that had once stood as the cradle of democracy became the epicenter of Europe's greatest financial disaster since World War II. And as the storm gathered, ordinary Greeks, shopkeepers, teachers, fishermen, faced an unimaginable future. The streets of Athens, once alive with tourists and laughter, began to echo with the distant rumble of unrest. The age of austerity. To avoid bankruptcy, Greece turned to the International Monetary Fund, the European Central Bank, and the European Commission, collectively known as the Troika, in exchange for bailout packages worth over 260 billion euros. Greece was forced to impose some of the harshest austerity measures in modern history. Salaries were slashed, pensions cut, public services gutted. Taxes skyrocketed while unemployment soared to 27%, the highest in Europe. For the youth, it was even worse. More than half of Greece's young people found themselves without jobs, their dreams dissolving into uncertainty. Athens became a city of contradictions. Luxury boutiques stood beside shuttered shops, while anti-austerity protests engulfed Syntagma Square, sometimes turning violent. Tear gas filled the air where once the Parthenon symbolized hope and freedom. For many, the crisis wasn't just economic, it was existential. Greece felt humiliated, reduced from a proud nation to what critics called a European protectorate. Yet amid the despair, a quiet determination began to grow, a belief that Greece would not be broken, the human cost. Behind the headlines and statistics was a human tragedy. Families who had worked for generations lost everything almost overnight. Hospitals ran short on medicine. Suicides, once among the lowest in Europe, rose sharply, turning personal despair into a national epidemic. Parents skipped meals so their children could eat. Entire neighborhoods in Athens fell silent as businesses closed and homes were abandoned. But even in the darkest days, the spirit of the Greek people refused to surrender. Across the country, communities came together, sharing what little they had. In rural villages, families returned to farming, rediscovering ancient survival skills. Neighbors cooked together, growing vegetables in shared gardens. Where government aid failed, solidarity networks emerged. Ordinary citizens feeding the world, homeless clothing the unemployed, and opening doors to strangers. In a world obsessed with numbers and GDP figures, Greece reminded us of something greater. An economy can collapse, but humanity endures. Rising from the ashes, by 2018, Greece formally exited its bailout programs, but the scars of the crisis ran deep. The economy had shrunk by a quarter, wages had been slashed, and thousands of talented Greeks had emigrated in search of better opportunities. A brain drain that left lasting wounds. Yet slowly, the tide began to turn. Tourism reached record highs, investments returned, and unemployment began to decline. Shipping remained a global powerhouse, while agriculture and technology quietly fueled new growth. Perhaps most importantly, Greeks had learned to adapt. Entrepreneurship flourished, fueled by necessity. Startups specializing in fintech, green energy, and digital solutions gained momentum, positioning Greece as a surprising innovation hub in the Eastern Mediterranean. It wasn't a story of miraculous recovery, but of grit and resilience. a reminder that even in the shadow of collapse, a nation can rewrite its future. Lessons for the world. The Greek financial crisis wasn't just Greece's story. It was a warning to the world. It revealed how interconnected economies can amplify vulnerabilities, how a single misstep in policy or governance can ripple across continents. It also exposed the limits of austerity, raising questions about the price of saving markets while sacrificing people. But above all, Greece's journey taught us about the indomitable power of collective spirit. From the ruins of economic despair, Greece emerged, battered but unbroken, its culture, identity, and humanity intact. Today, as the Acropolis stands beneath the Aegean sun, it reminds the world that no crisis, no matter how deep, can erase 5,000 years of history. Greece survived because, like its ancient heroes, it understood a timeless truth. The greatest victories are born not from avoiding struggle, but from enduring it. Current situation, a nation reborn. Under the warm light of the Aegean sun, modern Greece seems peaceful, almost timeless. Tourists sip coffee in Plaka's narrow streets, the scent of orange blossoms drifting through the air, while ferries glide across the deep blue waters to islands that look unchanged for centuries. But beneath this postcard beauty lies a nation, still finding its balance after years of upheaval. The economy is recovering but fragile. Society is healing but scarred. Greece stands at a crossroads, caught between ancient legacy and modern demands. It is a small country with a monumental past, yet today it faces challenges far greater than ruins and monuments can solve. In a world shaped by globalization, migration, and shifting alliances, Greece's position at the edge of Europe and at the gateway to Asia and Africa gives it an outsized role in shaping the region's destiny. And in that balance between history and modernity, between East and West, lies the soul of Greece today. A fragile political landscape. Greece's political stage today is volatile yet vibrant, reflecting a society still grappling with the aftershocks of crisis. The government, led by alternating waves of progressive reformers and conservative traditionalists, faces deep divides over taxation, privatization, immigration, and foreign policy. While Athens seeks stability and growth, the people demand justice for years of hardship. Trust in political institutions remains low, as citizens still recall the broken promises of leaders during the economic collapse. Yet, despite the turbulence, democracy endures, as it has for 2,500 years. In Syntagma Square, where protesters once clashed with riot police, children now play under the shadows of the Hellenic Parliament, a living symbol of Greece's unbroken democratic spirit. But politics in Greece is not just about domestic struggles. It is inseparably tied to regional conflicts and global pressures that constantly shape the nation's fate. The refugee front line, standing at the doorstep of Europe. Greece has become one of the front lines of the global refugee crisis. Its islands, from Lesbos to Chios, have witnessed waves of desperate families crossing the Aegean Sea in fragile boats, fleeing war, poverty, and persecution from Syria, Afghanistan, and beyond. At its peak, more than 1 million refugees passed through Greece in just a few years. Camps overflowed, resources strained, communities divided. International aid flowed in, but so did tension, as Europe debated responsibility and burden sharing. For Greece, already recovering from its economic wounds, this was another existential challenge: how to uphold humanity and compassion while protecting its fragile stability. The stories are heartbreaking: children separated from parents, entire families lost at sea, but they also reveal Greece's enduring heart. Despite limited means, countless Greeks opened their homes, kitchens, and wallets to help strangers in need. In these moments, the world saw a Greece bigger than its borders, a Greece defined not only by ancient ruins, but by modern acts of courage and solidarity. The Eastern Mediterranean chessboard. Beyond its humanitarian challenges, Greece also finds itself at the center of geopolitical storms. Its location, straddling Europe, Asia, and Africa, makes it a strategic prize in global politics. To the east lies Turkey, a historic rival with whom tensions simmer over maritime boundaries, gas reserves, and Cyprus. The eastern Mediterranean has become a battleground for energy exploration, with Greece asserting its rights under international law while Turkey presses its own claims. Further complicating matters are the interests of global powers. The U.S. strengthens military ties with Athens, while Russia and China seek influence. The European Union expects solidarity, but sometimes delivers division. For Greece, every decision carries weight far beyond its size. Each alliance, each negotiation, shapes not only its own security, but the stability of the wider Mediterranean region. In this modern chess game of power and diplomacy, Greece is no longer just a player. It is often the board itself, between past and future. Modern Greece is a nation of paradoxes. It is ancient yet youthful, fragile yet resilient, small in size yet enormous in influence. It is the land where philosophy was born, yet it now grapples with practical challenges of debt, migration, and energy security. But perhaps that tension between heritage and adaptation is exactly what defines Greece today. In Athens, you can stand on the Acropolis and gaze down at streets buzzing with digital startups and electric scooters, where history and innovation blend seamlessly. Greece has survived wars, occupations, crises, and collapses, yet it has always risen because it carries within it a memory far deeper than any single catastrophe. And as it stands at this new crossroads, Greece's future will depend not only on its leaders, but on the strength of its people and their unshakable belief that, as their ancestors taught the world, from chaos comes creation. Europe's southern sentinel. At the southern edge of the European Union, Greece serves as both a bridge and a barrier. It connects continents, cultures, and economies, yet it also shields Europe from the instability of the Middle East and North Africa. This dual role is as heavy as it is vital. Every ship that sails through the Aegean and every migrant boat that washes upon its shores reminds the world that Greece is more than a picturesque holiday escape. It is a strategic front line of Europe. Its navy patrols contested waters. Its diplomats maneuver through intricate treaties. And its economy leans heavily on decisions made in Brussels, Berlin, and Washington. And yet, despite its importance, Greece has often felt abandoned by its allies, left to manage crises from financial collapse to migration waves, largely on its own. This tension between Greece's sacrifices for Europe and Europe's reluctant support shapes much of its modern foreign policy. The question remains, how long can a nation so small bear responsibilities so great? The energy wars beneath the waves. Beneath the shimmering turquoise waters of the eastern Mediterranean lies a treasure that could redefine the region's future: vast natural gas reserves. For Greece, these underwater riches represent hope, a chance to reduce dependence on foreign energy, attract global investment, and finally step into the ranks of regional energy powerhouses. But as so often in history, wealth invites conflict. Turkey contests many of Greece's exploration zones, deploying ships and warplanes to assert its claims. The standoff is tense, with both countries conducting military drills mere miles apart, their navies staring each other down under the blazing Mediterranean sun. International powers, from the U.S. to France, weigh in, each pursuing their own interests, turning the Aegean into a diplomatic chessboard. Energy pipelines, maritime borders, and untapped wealth intertwine into one of the most complex geopolitical puzzles of the 21st century. For Greece, victory here is not just economic, it is existential, tied to sovereignty, security, and pride. The climate crisis on the horizon. But even as Greece battles on political and economic fronts, another force, vast, silent and relentless, threatens its very landscape and way of life. Climate change. Once celebrated as a land of eternal summers and gentle breezes, Greece now finds itself battered by extreme heat waves, raging wildfires, and rising seas. Every summer, forests from Attica to Rhodes ignite into walls of flame, villages are evacuated, and ancient olive groves, some thousands of years old, are reduced to ash. On the islands, where fishing once sustained generations, warming seas are driving marine life away. And for a nation so deeply dependent on tourism, climate change is more than an environmental crisis. It is an existential threat to its economy and identity. Yet, amid the devastation, Greece is fighting back. It is investing in renewable energy, protecting biodiversity, and pushing for regional cooperation on climate policy. The struggle is monumental. But then again, so is Greece's capacity for endurance. A digital phoenix rising. Beyond its crises and conflicts, a new Greece is emerging, young, ambitious, and unexpectedly innovative. Over the past decade, Athens has transformed into a hub for tech startups, creative industries, and green innovations. Greek universities, once drained by brain drain, are now producing talent that competes globally. The government is courting foreign investors, introducing incentives for digital nomads, and establishing research hubs for AI, fintech, and renewable energy. From Thessaloniki's buzzing innovation labs to Crete's marine research centers, Greece is quietly reshaping its economy for the 21st century. But this rebirth is fragile, still shadowed by debt and demographic decline. Millions of young Greeks left during the financial crisis, and while some are returning, the scars remain. Greece's digital phoenix may soar, but it carries the memory of fire and ashes, a reminder that reinvention is as painful as it is powerful, between crisis and opportunity. Today, Greece exists in a state of constant paradox. It is a nation burdened by crises, yet blessed with opportunities. It stands at the fault lines of migration, energy, climate, and geopolitics, while simultaneously rediscovering its potential as a leader in tourism, sustainability, and innovation. The weight of history presses upon it, but so does the promise of the future. Greece's challenges are immense, but so is its capacity for reinvention, something woven into its DNA since the fall of Athens, the collapse of Byzantium, and the struggles of modern independence. Again and again, Greece has faced chaos. And again, it has created something new from the ruins. The question now is whether this generation can rise as their ancestors did, not merely to survive, but to thrive. In a world racing forward, Greece must decide whether it will remain a relic of the past or a pioneer of the future. The weight of 1,000 years. Beneath the marble columns of the Acropolis, the whispers of centuries still echo. Every stone carries a story of philosophers who questioned existence, of warriors who defended their land, of poets who captured the human soul. But as modern Athens pulses with traffic and screens glow under the night sky, a profound tension lingers. How does a nation so steeped in history step boldly into the future? For many Greeks, the past is both a treasure and a burden. It inspires pride, yet sets expectations almost impossibly high. To walk the streets of Athens is to feel time itself layered upon you, the ruins of antiquity beneath your feet, the Byzantine churches at your side, the Ottoman traces in the air, and the glass towers rising ahead. Greece is not just a country. It is a continuum of civilizations, each leaving its mark, each demanding to be remembered. And today, the greatest challenge of all is this: how can Greece honor its eternal heritage, while forging a new identity that belongs entirely to the modern age? The identity crisis. Ask a Greek, "Who are you?" And the answer is rarely simple. European or Mediterranean, Balkan or Western, ancient or modern. Greece exists at a crossroads, both geographically and culturally, straddling east and west, tradition and innovation. This duality shapes everything, from its politics to its art, from its economy to its foreign alliances. On one hand, Greece is a proud member of the European Union, committed to democratic values, integration, and modern governance. On the other, its orthodox traditions, family structures, and communal spirit reflect a culture far older and more intimate than the bureaucracies of Brussels. This tension often erupts into debates about migration, globalization, and sovereignty. Yet perhaps this fluid identity is Greece's greatest strength. For millennia, it has absorbed influences, adapted to conquerors, and reinvented itself, not by erasing its past, but by blending worlds. Greece has never been just one thing. It has always been many things at once, and that complexity may be the very key to its future. A nation at the edge of change. Look closer, and you can sense it. A quiet transformation unfolding. In Athens, once battered by austerity, cafes buzz with young entrepreneurs launching startups, their dreams stretching far beyond the Aegean. On the islands, communities are experimenting with renewable energy, turning the sun and wind into lifelines of independence. Greek universities are partnering with global tech giants, and remote workers from every corner of the globe are arriving to build their futures under the Mediterranean sun. It's a fragile revolution, but it carries the same spirit of resilience that once helped Greece rise from Persian invasions, Ottoman occupation, and economic collapse. Each generation of Greeks has faced its crisis, and now the challenge of ours is clear: to build a nation that is not only proud of its past, but prepared for its future. Whether it succeeds or fails depends not on its ruins, but on the living voices shaping its destiny today. The eternal flame. Across the Aegean, when the sun sinks behind the mountains and the sky melts into gold, something eternal stirs in the Greek spirit. It's in the laughter of families gathering under vine-covered terraces, in the old songs carried by fishermen's voices, in the silent strength of grandmothers kneading bread before dawn. Greece survives not because of politics or power, but because of its people, their warmth, their stubbornness, their refusal to let go of hope. This is the same flame that burned in Leonidas at Thermopylae in the revolutionaries of 1821. In the students who faced tanks during the Athens Polytechnic uprising. It's a fire that refuses to die, no matter how fierce the storm. And so, despite debt, disputes, and disasters, Greece stands. Battered, yes. Changed, certainly. But unbroken. Always unbroken. A final breath over the Aegean. As dawn breaks over Santorini's white cliffs, the Aegean stretches endlessly into the horizon, shimmering like a mirror to time itself. Here, the ancient and the modern converge, temples turned into theaters. Ruins standing beside high-rises, and myths lingering in every stone. Greece has been called many things: the cradle of democracy, the bridge between continents, the poet of civilizations. But perhaps above all, Greece is a reminder to the world, and to itself, that identity is not a destination, but a journey. Through wars and conquests, through empires and crises, through collapse and rebirth, Greece continues to write its story. And now, as the 21st century unfolds, the pen is once again in its hands. Will it rise to meet the challenges of migration, energy, climate, and technology? No one knows. But if history has taught us anything, it is this: Greece endures, Greece transforms, Greece lives. And somewhere between myth and reality, between memory and destiny, this small nation continues to shape the world as it always has, for thousands of years. Greece has stood where empires rose and fell, where myths became history, and where history became legend. Its philosophers shaped the way we think. Its warriors defended the dream of freedom, and its poets taught the world the meaning of love and loss. Today, the world has changed. But Greece still whispers the same eternal truth. Civilizations may crumble, but the spirit of Greece lives forever.